we've got a warning that our next segment includes discussions of suicide and other sensitive topics, so viewer discretion is advised.
One of our next guests lost his brother Sam to suicide in 2018, and since then he's strived to mark each anniversary of his passing in a positive way.
Joining us to discuss is mental health campaigner Ben West alongside paramedic Anne-Marie Woodage from Virgin Media's First Timers on the Frontline. Anne-Marie, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. But Ben, we're going to start with you first, and thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about your brother Sam?
Yeah, thanks for having me on this morning. Sam was an amazing young person. I guess the best way to describe him really is the opposite of the person that comes to mind when you think about suicide and depression. He was incredibly talented, he was very creative, he had loads of friends, he was very funny, outgoing. He always had people over around the house. He was just someone that brought a lot of light into the world and to the people around him, and just he was a very supportive, amazing, funny young man that would have gone on to have an incredible life that I'm sure all of us would have been really proud of him for. And it's obviously such a, even sitting here now talking about him, it's like it was such a shock. It was such a shock that it was him.
Can you take us back to that day that yourself and your mum found him in his room?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it was a pretty standard, average day. It was a Sunday in January, so it was pretty drizzly weather. Nothing really happened that day that stood out as being different. But Sam, I guess the best way to describe him was it was almost like living with a cardboard cutout of him. There was just nothing there. It was just sort of the facade. It was the image of him. There was nothing behind that. And then in the evening, my mum went to check on him and then found him, and I obviously went running after and sort of found him as well. And that is really, for me, that moment is the beginning of the rest of my life, where this normal, happy young man that I was at 17 suddenly lost my 15-year-old brother to suicide. And there is a very much in my life, there is a before and after, and everything happens either before that date or after that date. And I think people that have gone through trauma could probably relate to that. And I sort of I got out of bed the next day, and ever since it's been trying to understand what happened, but also trying to understand what we can do differently to make sure what happened never happens again.
And I know that's something that you concentrate on, so that your life has become about, Ben, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But on that horrific night, you did what everybody else would do, and you called the paramedics, you dialed 999. And Anne-Marie, for you, unfortunately, you are a person who receives these calls. Yeah. You've gone to calls in relation to suicide before. What's that like?
It's tough. You're always wondering what might have led the person to that kind of situation. You're wondering how you're going to deal with the family that are there. You're wondering if there's any hope or any chance that you can do something to revive them. You know, there's so many different circumstances that around how long they've been, how long they've been down for. And then the available resources as well, such as advanced paramedics and doctors. You're trying to get everything all organised, and you, like I say in the show, you have your paramedic hat on. You're thinking clinically, you're thinking medically, but you're also aware of the family and everything else that's going on. Because
unfortunately we do, in the series, in the episode, we do see this happening, and where you are confronted by a suicide.
I mean, 1 minute we've done a call, a minor medical call, maybe someone who has a chest infection, we've brought them to hospital, and we've got 5 minutes to go and grab a coffee. And, we're just chit-chatting and talking about how many sugars we're going to have, or if we're having a double espresso or whatever. And then the next minute, the call comes up and the screen is purple, which means that it's a cardiac or respiratory arrest. It's the worst kind of, category that you can
so
see.
There's different colour codes,
there's different categories,
I didn't know that.
So when you get a purple one, that means that it's life-threatening and, immediate action has to be taken right away. So, the screen flashed purple. We were about 5 minutes around the corner. blue lights on straight away, straight out to the young girl that we went to. I say young girl, she was a young woman. She was 23 years old.
Yeah.
23.
Yeah, she had her whole life ahead of her, like. And then we arrived on scene and we did everything we could. But unfortunately, sometimes it's just too late.
Yeah.
And that is in the program. How do you deal with that? What do you do?
You don't really deal with it. You kind of have to try and process it. You have to move on to the next call. You have to talk. You have to debrief. You have to learn and see if there's anything else that could have been done. You do question yourself a lot, but you have the support of your peers and other colleagues. You have the support of the critical incident management. Stress management team that will support you. There's always support there from the ambulance service and from your peers and even friends as well, people outside of the ambulance service that you can talk to. And yeah, you just try and get through it and try and hope that you don't get to another one like that.
Yeah, because and then extra difficult for you because you've had your own struggles.
Yeah, I have.
In this area.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
you can relate to that young girl, to people in this situation.
Like I say in the show as well, I remember being that age and being uncertain of what my future held. I didn't feel I had a purpose or anything. There were so many different struggles and you just can't see a way out. And then, you fall into a depression and sometimes you're waiting for someone to notice and ask you, are you okay? And, but you're also putting up a facade as well. So my family, I realised my family could have experienced what that young woman's family experienced. And that's kind of what hit home. And, so it's the people that are left behind afterwards that have to, pick up the pieces. And I suppose when you're that desperate, when you're that depressed, you're not thinking of those things, you're not thinking that there's a way out.
Because you're in, and Ben, unfortunately, that was the way it was for your brother, Sam, but you and your family have been left behind. So how are ye?
Yeah, I mean, we've all very much reacted in the same way, which is we've got to try and stop this from happening again. And I guess a lot of healing comes from that. But I will just say, Anne-Marie, you sound like the absolute perfect person to be doing the job you're doing, to have that experience. I think if I reflect back on that night, like really, and we had the air ambulance response, and I spent a lot of time talking to the doctors there, and really there was very little chance that Sam had. And I guess what happened for me was the paramedics and the teams that arrived, they were so incredible for me and my family that night. And it was small things, like I think people sometimes think of emergency medicine and paramedics as being like the running in with kit. And actually for me, probably the best thing that happened that night was just the gentle kindness of these amazing people and knowing that they did everything they can. So I just want to say that to you, because I think the impact you can have on our recovery just by being the wonderful person you are is really huge. And so sometimes, it is unavoidable that people end up being incredibly unwell and sort of beyond saving, as Sam, I'm sure, was. But that process for me helped so much sort of begin that recovery journey that night, when the police just went, have a Capri Sun and just sit down with a couple of the paramedics and we'll just chat about the jobs they've done today and like some of their kit. And it's like that those sorts of things were absolutely amazing in such a traumatic period. So I guess I was also a patient that night, and I thought the care I got from these amazing people was just extraordinary.
And then like there's this, as you said, your life changes. There's before and there's after. And your family and your younger brother and your parents were in this grief. But you did something that's quite amazing. And this is called Reasons to Stay. Ben, can you tell us about this? Yeah.
Oh, I love that I'm talking about this. So I basically, for a few years now, I've known that what we have is a really rapidly growing need for mental health support. And a lot of people that are feeling isolated and talking about loneliness, and then contemplating suicide. But on the flip side, we also have a vast number of people around the world who really care about this issue and who actually would do quite a lot to help those people that are struggling. And I've wondered for a number of years now, how could you connect the people that want to care with the people that need to be cared for in a way that's clinically safe. And so that's how Reasons to Stay was made, which essentially is a website where anyone in the world can write a letter to someone that is thinking about suicide, giving them a reason to stay. And I put that out into the world on the 21st of January this year, about 6 weeks ago, thinking that it was a good idea and could end up helping a few hundred people. Within a few days, we'd sent 33,000 letters. And now, sitting here today, 6 weeks from launch, we've sent 2.3 million letters to people in 160 countries. And I know of 2 individuals who I can be very confident wouldn't have survived their experience in that moment without that letter that they wrote, which is just just amazing.
It's such a simple thing to do, but to have the effect that it's had, and as you say, you've saved people's lives. You must feel so wonderful for you and for Sam for starting this.
Yeah, it's really bittersweet though, because as much as I haven't stopped smiling for about 6 weeks because it's been the most incredible experience to be at the front of. But I do think Sam would have loved this. He would have absolutely loved it. And anyone can go on the website and just be reminded that in a world that feels really divided and sometimes quite dark, there are an enormous number of people that are really lovely and really care, and there is a lot of humanity that still exists, and there's a lot of love in the world for people that they don't know. And I think that if nothing else, and you take away the sort of clinical aspect of it and the suicide aspect of it, it is a project that just demonstrates the human capacity to love and care for strangers. And I think we can all be reminded of that sometimes, of how amazing we are as a species. And it's difficult to remember that sometimes, but we are amazing and we can help each other. And this project is about trying to help those people who are in the most vulnerable situation. So I know Sam would have loved it. And I wish Sam had it that night where he could have just quickly gone on and read one of these beautiful letters.
So beautiful. And I know that you were just smiling there, Anne-Marie, because you have been...
Yeah, I read some of them.
You've read some of them.
I was on the website,
And it's
amazing.
You've dealt with many aspects of this, and 500 people we think die by suicide in Ireland.
It's more than one a day.
It's more than one a day in this country. And you were on the other side of this. You're based in Limerick, which has, unfortunately,
there is a lot of mental health issues in Limerick.
Yeah. Things like this, because I suppose, you're there, you're a first responder. There's so many more holistic. It's kind of amazing what he's done.
Mental health is just as important as medical and physical health. So even just to be able to read a letter or to get some nice words from someone, it really can make the world of difference. I can come along with my stethoscope and my machines and everything, but sometimes just to hear nice words from someone, whether someone you know or a stranger, it can really make a big difference. So I really commend Ben for what he's doing.
And it's reasonstostay.co.uk. Ben, thank you so much for joining us this morning and talking about your wonderful brother, Sam. And as Ben said, Anne-Marie, thank you for doing what you do.
No problem.
Because you're helping so many people.
Can I just add something really quickly? You might have seen in the news, the public at the moment, about the paramedics and our contracts.
Yes.
So there is a bit of a predicament that we're in, and I myself will be facing that. My colleagues will be facing not having permanent contracts that we, as we anticipated.
Being moved from your stations. Yeah.
So I'd really urge, if there's any TDs that are watching, if there's any public, if they can help us and get behind us and support us and rally, because we love our communities, we love helping people, and we just want to be able to continue to do that.
And you can find out more. There's a lot of information about what's happening with paramedics at the minute, a change to their contracts, which is affecting almost everybody. Anne-Marie, fair play for talking about that. And if you want to see what it is that our first responders and our paramedics do, it's First Timers on the Front Line. It's on Virgin Media tonight at 9 p.m. It's also on Virgin Media Play. You can catch up there, where Anne-Marie... it's difficult what you're doing tonight, but you were absolutely fantastic in it. Anne-Marie 𝐕𝐢𝐞𝐰𝐞𝐫, thank you so much for joining us, and to Ben West, back with you shortly on Ireland Day.